and chapter 8. We're discussing about how God is a spirit and a person. So you should have the chapter 8 video notes, or the chapter 8 workbook open. And you're also going to need to open a Word document and prepare to take a few notes. So pause this video until you're ready to get started with your Word document. Okay, on your Word document, you're going to write a statement and a question. And at the end of the video, you'll respond to the question on your own. So you're going to be writing two things now. Watch the video, and then after the video, come back and respond to that question. Here's the statement. The first thing you're going to write is this. You ready? As a person, I am more than a physical body. I also have a spirit and a soul. As a person, comma, I am more than a physical body, semicolon. I also have a spirit and a soul. Perhaps you already recognize that. People are more than just the collection of cells and skin and tissue, bones, whatever else will all decay someday and turn to dust after we die. You know, we have a brain. That's the physical part of us. But that isn't our mind. That isn't who we are. We're more than just the collection of physical matter that composes our physical body. And so the reality is we're created in three parts, with a body, a mind, we call that our spirit, and our eternal soul. So you should have a person, comma, as a person, comma, I am more than a physical body, semicolon, I also have a spirit and a soul, period. Now here's the question that you'll also need to record, and this is the question that you'll need to respond to at the end of the video in a short paragraph, all right? What part of me am I to use most in worshiping God, and why? What part of me am I to use most in worshiping God, and why? All right, with that, written on our Word document, we'll now jump into the teacher's lesson for chapter 8. So you may want to switch screens and get to your workbook and find the teacher's lesson. You may pause the video until you've done so. In this lesson, we want to discuss two aspects of God's nature. His nature is multifaceted because he is infinite, but there are two aspects of his nature that we need to comprehend in order to glorify and worship him correctly. Before we look at those two aspects, let's discuss what we mean by the nature of God. God's nature, as would be for anyone's nature, is referring to the very essence of who the person is. The word essence means the essential being, the substance of the person, or the reality of who the person is. It involves their personality, their desires, their being, the person you know when you really know someone. Not just their size, shape, and ideas, but who they really are. We're seeking to know the very essence of God as much as we can. And of course, the nature of God also involves his attributes. These are the characteristics of his nature. This is how God acts, what he does, what he values. So putting these two aspects together will help us better know God, which is the whole purpose of everything. We need to know him. And not just know about him, but know him personally. It's about that personal relationship that we can have with God. So understanding a person's essence and attributes will lead you to knowing that person's nature. So at this point, let's look a little bit more deeply into the nature of God. What is God really like? First, we see that God is a spirit. We need to be clear on this. He's not a physical being. He is a spiritual being. Excuse me. We always want Scripture to define what we know about God. So what does Scripture say about this? We find that it is very clearly stated in John 4:24 that God is spirit. Perhaps you remember this verse because it's part of our core. We need to think of God as a spiritual being, not the big guy in the sky, but a spiritual being, not necessarily with a physical body. And as we understand this fact, we can more easily understand much more about God as he is described in Scripture. Throughout Scripture, we see that God is described as we find that in Colossians 1:15. He does not have a physical body. You can read about that in Luke 24:39. That he is in all places, according to Psalms 139, 7 and 8. And so these aspects of God would be impossible if he were a physical being. But since he is spiritual, we can see how these descriptions also work for him. This aspect of God being a spirit is also significant to our interaction with Him. We need to interact with God with the understanding that He is a spiritual being. And since He is not physical, we can't use our senses to experience God as we would other people we know. So think about your closest friends or family. Part of your relationship that is based on your senses, probably the sense of touch as you hug or interact with them. But the more you know someone, the more you become aware of other things with your senses, the sound of their voice, and maybe even the way that they walk. Sometimes you even notice certain smells about someone. My grandma always smelled like spearmint. I don't know if that's too much information or not. But when it comes to God, we can use our senses to interact with Him. So we must interact with Him from our spirit and worship Him in spirit. By the way, let's define that term worship again. Worship is the occupation of the heart with a known God. And we find that in Psalms 51:6, the occupation of the heart with a known God. Psalms 51:6 says, "But you desire honesty from the womb, teaching me wisdom even there." So before we were even born, God wanted to know us. Now, this may not be the best translation. It's the NIV. A better way to describe the word translated as womb is heart. And actually, the King James says it this way: "Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom." And so, worship should be the occupation of our heart, our inward part, the essence of who we are and who we've always been, even since before we were born, should be engaged in seeking to know God. And actually, we're designed to seek knowledge, and all that knowledge. Now, it's easy to think that because God is a spirit and not physical, that He's not a person. A lot of times people think that you have to be physical to be a person. But we have to understand that there's more to being a person than having a physical body. Our physical body is the temporary part of us, and it's what makes us human, but our mind and our souls are eternal. We are spirits who have a body, not bodies who have a spirit. So, this next aspect about God's nature is equally important for us to understand, and it's this: God is a person. God is a person. There are three verses that we'll look at that show that God has the qualities of personhood. The first one is Psalms 115:3, and you could look that up if you like, but I'm going to read it for you. The verse says, "Our God is in heaven, He does whatever He pleases." And so the first aspect of personhood that we see and that God demonstrates is that He knows stuff. He has an intellect and a mind. So Psalms 115:3 is showing us that one part of being a person is to have a will, to have opinions, to have a mind with which you make opinions, form opinions, and make decisions. We also see in Acts 15:18 that He has. And in John 3:15 that God He loves. Other verses would show us that He gets angry, that He gets pleased, He even gets jealous. But why is it significant that God is a person? The significance of the fact that God is a person is because I am a person. You are a person. And we seek to know people. We cannot know inanimate objects like rocks or trees. You used to be able to get a pet rock. I'm not sure how enjoyable those pet rocks are. But if you think about your pets, the reason our pets are loved by us is because they show personality. And so we can relate with them on a personal level. But even our pets are limited because they don't display the full range of things that a person does. So since God is a person, we can know Him personally. Because God is a person, I can know Him. That concludes the teacher's notes, the teacher's lesson for chapter 8. But don't forget about your Word document. You need to go back to your Word document now and write a brief paragraph in response to that last question that you received at the beginning of this lesson. Feel free to use the aspects of God we just discussed to expand your paragraph, but at this point, save these notes and go back to your Word document, answer that last question, and then submit it. Thank you.